Turn off the lights tonight. Not the big light. Everything. Phone down. TV off. Curtains closed. Just sit there for a minute. It's weird, isn't it? You know you're in the same room. You know there's probably nothing there. But the second you can't see what's around you, your brain starts doing something really stupid. Every little noise suddenly matters. That shadow in the corner starts looking like something. And for some reason, you feel like you should probably turn the lights back on. So why? Why are humans scared of something as simple as darkness? Because for most of our history, not being able to see didn't mean you were sitting in a dark bedroom. It meant you had no idea what was standing 10 feet away from you. This is one of the most common fears in childhood, and almost nobody stops to ask what the fear actually is. Because you're not really afraid of the dark. Darkness isn't a thing. It has no temperature, no weight, no intention. It's just the absence of light. Your brain doesn't waste much energy being afraid of an absence. It worries about what that absence means, what you can't see, what you can't identify, what might be standing just outside your field of vision. Start with your eyes. In daylight, human vision is ridiculously good. We can see color, fine detail, read tiny writing, recognize faces almost instantly. Estimates vary, but humans with normal color vision can distinguish on the order of millions of different colors under suitable viewing conditions. But take the light away and the advantage starts disappearing. Your retina has two main types of photoreceptors: cones and rods. Cones are responsible for detailed color vision and work best in brighter conditions. Rods are far more sensitive in dim light, but they give you much less detail and essentially no color. And right in the center of your vision is the fovea, which is packed with cones and has very few rods. That's why a faint star can sometimes disappear when you stare directly at it, then become easier to see when you look slightly to the side. So your eyes don't simply get worse in the dark. They switch into a different mode. And compared with animals that are built for night hunting, we're not exactly impressive. Cats and many other nocturnal animals have eyes adapted to gather and reuse tiny amounts of available light. One of the tricks is a reflective structure called the tapetum lucidum, which sends light back through the retina a second time. In cats, this can lower the amount of light needed for vision to roughly 1/6 of the light required by a human eye. We don't have one, neither does any modern human. And that means when the sun goes down, we lose a huge amount of the information our brains normally rely on. Not literally go blind, but suddenly there's a lot more we can't see. Now here's the strange part about the fear itself. Nobody has to explain it to you. Fear of the dark is a well-documented childhood fear. It commonly appears during early childhood and usually becomes less intense as children get older. Researchers have studied it as part of normal childhood fear and anxiety rather than something that always needs to be learned from a specific scary experience. A child doesn't need to be attacked by a dog to be uneasy around a dark room. They don't need to watch a horror movie. Sometimes they just walk into the hallway at night, look into the darkness, and suddenly decide they'd rather be anywhere else. That's important, because some fears are built around things that happen to you. The dog bit you. You fell into the pool. You got hurt. Darkness doesn't need an event. The problem is simply that you can't see what's in it. And that makes darkness a perfect environment for the oldest thing your brain does when it lacks information: guess. So what were our ancestors worried about? Predators. And this is where we need to be careful. Hominins lived alongside large carnivores and other dangerous predators for millions of years, and there is fossil evidence of interactions with predators. But we cannot honestly say that all of them hunted humans at night, or that humans were universally prey throughout our entire evolutionary history. Still, the basic problem was real. A human being in the dark can't see nearly as well as an animal built for it. You hear something. You turn your head. Nothing. You wait. Still nothing, and now your brain has a problem. Because the sound could be nothing. Or it could be something that can see you perfectly, while you can't see it at all. The famous town child is a reminder that our early relatives really did face predators. The roughly 3.3-year-old Australopithecus africanus child was discovered in South Africa in 1924. Marks on the skull are now widely interpreted as evidence that the child was attacked by a large bird of prey, probably an eagle. That's actually a better story than the old leopard version, because it reminds us of something simple. Early humans weren't surrounded only by the giant predators you see in movies. There were threats from above too, and the town child is one fossilized example of how vulnerable a small hominin could be. Then came the fire. There is secure archaeological evidence for burning at Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, dating to about 1 million years ago, including burned bone and ash in an archaeological context. Researchers describe it as the earliest secure evidence of burning at a site of this kind. And fire did something incredibly important at night. It didn't make the entire world safe. It gave you a little piece of the world you could actually see. Inside the firelight, you could see faces. You could see the ground. You could see movement. And beyond it, the darkness was still there. Modern hunter-gatherer research also shows that fire is much more than a cooking tool. Among the Zhu Huanzi, nighttime around the fire is a major social period for conversation, storytelling, ceremony, and maintaining relationships. The researchers also note that nighttime darkness can increase the sense of vulnerability to predators and other dangers. So fire didn't destroy the darkness. It gave humans a little island inside it. Now we get to the part that explains why you can still feel that fear tonight. In an apartment, behind a locked door, with no predator anywhere near you. Your brain doesn't just sit there recording the world like a security camera. It is constantly interpreting what your senses are giving it. And vision is a huge part of that. So when the lights go out, you're suddenly missing a lot of information. The room hasn't changed. Your ability to inspect it has. The chair is still there. You just can't see it. The coat is still hanging on the door. You just can't see it clearly. And every tiny sound suddenly becomes more interesting because your eyes can't immediately explain it. That's where darkness gets inside your head. Not because the darkness itself is dangerous, because darkness removes evidence that you're safe, and your brain would much rather make a false alarm than miss a real threat. Think about the trade-off. You hear a noise. You assume it's the house settling. You're right 99 times. But on the 100th time, it's actually something dangerous. The opposite strategy is different. Assume the noise might matter. You get scared 99 times for no reason. But that one time it really matters. You're already awake. Evolution doesn't need the alarm to be perfectly accurate. It only needs it to be useful often enough. And we can actually see that darkness changes human threat responses in the laboratory. In a 1997 experiment led by Christian Grillon and colleagues, sudden sounds produced a significantly stronger startle response when participants were in darkness compared with light. The study was conducted through Yale University School of Medicine, not the National Institute of Mental Health as sometimes claimed. Nothing had to be hiding in the room. The lights just had to go out. That tells you something. Darkness isn't necessarily creating the threat. It's turning up the sensitivity of the alarm. Then humans did something pretty unusual. We started beating back the night. Street lighting has a long history, with gas lighting becoming established in the late 1700s and electric street lighting appearing in the 1800s. Thomas Edison's 1879 incandescent lamp was an important step in making electric lighting practical and commercially scalable, although it wasn't the first electric light. And eventually, darkness stopped being something you simply had to accept. You could light a street, then a building, then an entire city. You could turn midnight into something that looked almost like daytime, but evolution doesn't change that quickly. A few centuries of artificial lighting are nowhere near enough time to erase traits shaped over far longer periods. The world changed faster than the hardware in your skull, and your brain still works with the same basic warning systems. There's another interesting clue here. Some people hate the dark so much that it actually seems to affect their sleep. A preliminary study from researchers at Ryerson University compared good and poor sleepers and found that more poor sleepers reported discomfort with darkness. In the experiment, poor sleepers also remained more reactive to unexpected sounds in darkness, while good sleepers showed more habituation. The researchers were careful to say they couldn't determine whether fear of darkness contributed to poor sleep or poor sleep made people more sensitive to darkness. That's a much more interesting result than saying insomnia is simply some ancient predator alarm running wild. Because we don't actually know that. What we do know is that darkness can change how people respond to unexpected sounds. And in some people, that response seems harder to switch off. So when you're standing at the end of the hallway at 3 in the morning, staring into a room that's completely black, and suddenly you're doing the mental calculation of how quickly you could get back to your bed, you're not necessarily being irrational. Your brain has been handed almost no information. And it hates that. It wants to know what's there. It wants to know whether that sound was the house or something else. Your fear isn't proof that something is in the hallway. It's proof that your brain knows it can't see the hallway. And those are two very different things. And here's the part I like most. Your fear of the dark isn't some useless glitch left over from the past. It's the shadow of a system that had a reason to exist. For most of human history, night meant less information, less visibility, more uncertainty, and sometimes more danger. Today, you can switch on a light with one finger. You can lock your front door, you can check the hallway with a camera, you can light an entire street, but your brain still remembers the basic rule. If I can't see it, I can't rule it out. So go get your water, cross the hallway, turn the light on if you want. There's probably nothing there. And that's the strange thing about fear. It doesn't have to be correct to be useful, it just has to keep you alive.